Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. I am very excited to have with me today Zak Vorhies, the Google whistleblower, who came out with Project Veritas with an incredible document dump of information showing the types of censorship that we've been talking about going on at Google for the last several years. But this is actual hardcore documentation and evidence. So first of all, Zak, thank you so much for agreeing to do the show. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Now, I've got a lot of stuff I want to ask you because the information provided here from you is pretty vast. But first of all, I was hoping that you could tell us about your career at Google. Like, what was your job? You know, what did you do there? What did that entail?
Yeah, so when I left Google, I was a senior software engineer. And the jobs that I had at Google were kind of broken up into two. So there was the portion that I was there working for Google Earth, taking Google Earth and putting it on the Audi navigation system. And then I did that for 5.5 years. And then the last 3 years, I was at YouTube working on their embedded YouTube player for the game consoles. So PS4, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, anyone who uses those products to access YouTube, that's the project that I worked on. I was part of that core team.
Okay, great. And how did you start to witness the culture changing at Google? Like, what did you start to see happening that made you realize something nefarious was going on?
Oh man, well, I guess it wasn't until like the final 3 years when Donald Trump won the election in 2016. That's when the company just did a complete 180-degree turn.
And how did you uncover the evidence that this was taking place? I mean, what was it? An open secret at Google? I mean, were people discussing this out in the open? I mean, there's so many different documents and things laying out their practices and what they were doing.
This will surprise a lot of people to hear, but all of the documents that I released were publicly available to any person on the internal networks.
Okay.
And so what happened was I first started to try to figure out what they meant by fake news. And if we rewind back a little bit to 2016, at the end of it, Google was sort of towing the line that President Trump had won the election because of election interference from Russia and fake news. And even though there was a lot of counter narratives coming out saying, no, this isn't true, and here's the evidence, the executives weren't really buying that. And so they switched to a mission to eliminate fake news from the internet. And so I was asking myself, well, wait a minute, what exactly does the company think about fake news? Like, what exactly is fake news according to Google? And so I dug in and I started researching, and I just used the search terms fake news, and I started finding like all of these documents online, these presentations. And so I started looking through these documents, and I started realizing that a lot of the terms, a lot of the phrases that they were listing as examples of fake news were actual real events that had taken place. And I went, wait a minute, if they're censoring the truth, if they're intending on censoring the truth, then how is the truth going to survive?
Yeah.
Why are they censoring the truth? And so I started finding out that these documents that were describing fake news would lead to other documents. And so what happened is as I started to expand the search ring of systems that I was able to find information for, I was able to download these into a cache of documents. And at the time, I didn't really intend to disclose this to the public. It was more for like my curiosity, and also because I knew that with a lot of these Marxists, they don't actually know what they're doing as being evil. And
Right.
So what I realized is there was a limited time period between like the documents being released internally and when they would no longer be available for me to save a cached copy of that and collect it. And so I just started this, this grab of documents as much as I could, like grab. And I would go home, I would like read more, and then I would like find out more about the system, and then keep on repeating the cycle until there's a huge cache of documents. And I kind of did this in like bursts. Like I would get curious, and then like I would get curious about a bunch of things, and then I download, and then I wouldn't do anything for like months on end, and then I would come back to it. So it was the fake news that really started to make me curious and made me start like turning on my investigative skills in the company.
Now, with regard to the deletion of these documents, was that just like a process of making extra room because there were so many things that were being created, or this was like an active way to cover it up?
Cover up, yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah, cover up. I mean, Breitbart started. I mean, it was so horrendous that I just sat down and I thought about it. I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? I'm like, okay, when a normal person that's not indoctrinated with all of this, media programming, when they see this, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is horrible. And they're going to leak it. And so I realized that once the social engineers that were operating this system of censorship, once they started getting like this feedback and these hits started coming in, when people started figuring out what was really going on, I realized that they would just like lock everything down because it was just so damaging for them.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think that are you unique in terms of like your views? I mean, you and I have very similar views on a lot of different things. I mean, just looking through your Twitter statuses and stuff like that, and the reporting that I saw, the hit piece done on you by the Daily Beast. I mean, are you an outlier in terms of the culture at Google? I mean, because when we think about Google, I think we all kind of just imagine that there's these ultra left-wing radicals basically that are looking to do some grand social engineering product and enforce their own views on people.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty unique within Google.
Yeah.
When I search for stuff online, I can compare it against what the rest of the country is searching for, and I'm actually part of the mainstream when it comes to that.
Exactly.
But the mainstream's been sort of prevented from, a lot of them don't, for whatever reason, a lot of them haven't made it into the Google system. And for me, I was like a lefty, like I supported Obama. I was there in Washington, D.C. when he got elected the first time. And for me, I was just like, wow, Obama killed a lot of people and he subverted a lot of countries and he flipped them. Like it was like 3, like they attempted. It was, like Tunisia got flipped. There was Libya, Egypt. Mm-hmm. And then they attempted to flip Syria as well. And so I've just been like following the news like a lot because like I don't like it when things don't make sense, and the media just never made sense. So I've always been like following this stuff, but I didn't realize like how deep this whole thing was. And so once I started to figure out and wake up, like then I would consider myself way different than the people that were still working there. I mean, most people don't go out and try to figure out that their organization is a criminal operation, and because there's no benefit to that individual. They got a family, they got kids, they got wife. Women tend not to want to see bad things as much as guys do. Like guys are like, oh, I love conspiracies, and so I think that I've definitely got like this obsessive researcher gene in me, yeah. And I want things to make sense. And so as I started getting more and more information, I started to drift further and further what would be considered the average view of the way that the world works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Being different?
Yeah. I mean, I just, so I would imagine that you probably didn't have many people within Google that you could discuss this with. I mean, did you try to bring this up with other coworkers and stuff?
Yeah, I did. And it was a disaster every single time.
Really?
So at some point I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to try to get to know these people. I'm not going to try to friend them on Facebook. Like, I had this feeling that something big was going to come of all of this revelation, because there's some evil stuff that I'm seeing, and it felt wrong. I was like, man, this is like a really weird company now. And I didn't, it was almost like traumatizing for the couple incidences that I had, that I opened up about people, and how much hate, and like it just triggered all these like internal things in their psyche, and they kind of like lashed out at me and called me a bunch of names, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm not doing that again. you know and the thing is I kind of see this Q community, and when I enter into it, it's just like everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, we understand what's going on. Like, we all face it. We all face the discrimination.
Yeah. We're a collective of people who, realized that we have been lied to our entire lives. Absolutely everything around us is a construct. I think that Google is the personification of that. It is the perfect real world example of, this like method and locus of control. They have perfected it. And for everybody that you tried to speak out to, they're still wrapped up in the matrix, basically. It's scary. I'm glad you got out. Well, when did you start downloading these documents? That was around 2016?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly 2016. I think it was like early 2017 I started downloading this. And the reason why was because of all the fake news that they were pushing within internal communications of the company. Like, fake news. We got to protect our customers from fake news. So I'm like, what's fake news? Let's go figure it out.
Were you worried at all that they were going to be tracking you, like, for the documents you were downloading? I mean, do you think that was, a fear at all?
Yeah, I knew that. Well, here's the thing is that, okay, so there's this panopticon, this all-seeing eye that like tracks all of the things that we do, right?
Yeah.
But it's hooked up to a really dumb brain, right? That can't make sense of most of this stuff. And even though it's like data overload is the problem with everything. It's like, oh, we've got all of this data everywhere, and we can't search through it. Even with the advances of all the computers, they still can't search through it all. They can't figure out what a signal is from the noise. So I felt that I was like, okay, well, I'm downloading these documents. I'm leaving like a little seed in a log that's getting logged somewhere that says, oh, Zak pulled this document. And then I realized that in the future, if that document ever got hot, they'd be like, well, who, like, let's say it got leaked, right? So document X gets leaked. Look at the logged files, and like, who is everyone in the company that like downloaded this? And now you get like a subset. And now this is like everyone that could be guilty. And then let's say like another document gets leaked, and then like that shrinks even more, like even less. So, I knew that there was a danger. I knew that they were probably not going to catch me at the time, but I knew that if this ever got hot, then they would possibly figure everything out. And my hope was that if they did, then they would be like, well, it's Zak and like 500 other people that have looked at these things.
When it came down to it, they narrowed you down pretty quickly, isn't that right?
Yeah, they narrowed me down pretty quickly. And I was wondering whether they would be able to do it, but I mean, they sent me a letter within a few weeks of the first disclosure where I came out anonymously.
Right.
I wasn't going to hit them hard. I was just like, because like I resigned and I was sick and tired of all the censorship. Like, I resigned right after the censorship push in May of 2017. I was like, I can't take this anymore. This is bad. I left. And then I ended up going to Project Veritas and giving testimony. And we released one document, maybe it was 2 documents, to the public. And that was enough to like cause this huge storm that raged across the internet for like a week. And so I was like, okay, that's just like 2 documents. Like, I'm just gonna let like the Patriots now know, and now I'm going to just go on my way. I'm going to put down the sword. I'm going to pick up the hammer of progress and like go back to work. Right. So, because I'm like, in a way that a guy says that he's like tall, like I'm kind of like at the top of the game. So I'm like, I've got I've got so much opportunity now, and I don't want to destroy my own career. I don't want to be the guy that leaked all these documents. So I'm just going to keep this quiet, and I'm just going to go on my way. And Google decided that they weren't going to play that game. They decided that they were going to drag me through a legal system, and when they sent me a letter saying, hey, what documents did you retain? Give us a list of everyone that you've given any documents that you've retained to. Let us come onto your computer and your hard drive and go through all of your information. That's when I realized that, okay, they were starting the process of financial destruction against me, and that they had been able to narrow it down.
Would they have any legal right to come and search through your computer? I mean, were they asking just as a favor, like, hey, Zak, let us come and just check it out? Or was there some legal precedent for them to come and invade your life like that?
Yeah, there's a legal precedent. If they think that I'm trying to commit a criminal act, then they can bring up criminal charges. And if they think that I'm trying to steal it for monetary gain, then they can accuse me of theft of trade secrets. And there's a whole bunch of trade secret law, right? It's like run the gamut of espionage to personal gain for these documents. And Google's a $1 trillion company almost, and I'm just like some guy with just a little bit of like savings from my time at Google. So they're just going to destroy me. So I realized that I couldn't win in a court of law, that the only way I could win was in the court of public opinion.
And is that when you decided to fully come public with that second Veritas expose?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I got outed privately on Twitter as part of their like little psyop game. And the combination of that and the letter signaling impending lawfare, that was when I was like, well, not only do they want to get me and get a bunch of evidence and then make up whatever claims they can to destroy me, but they're also, the real reason that they're trying to get this is because they want to cover up their crimes.
Right.
And that's when I realized that, if I give this laptop to them and let them delete all the information, all the traces, then I'm essentially colluding with them on a national security issue to cover up their crimes. And so I took the laptop, I put it into a box, I printed 950 pages, and I sent it all to the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., Antitrust Division.
Amazing. Amazing. Have you had any further contact with them since that initially sending in that dump?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. So I sent in, I think it was like August 1st or August 2nd, like the whole thing like went out to Washington, D.C. And then like 5 days later, so I sent them a letter back saying, yeah, it's with law enforcement. That same, like around a day or two later, this troll account was created and started harassing me online. And at first I didn't respond to them, and they waited like 5 days. And then after the 5 days was up, they outed me. What they said was, hey, Zak, shouldn't you change your bio on Twitter since you're no longer gainfully employed, Mr. Leaker? So, wow. Whoa. Now at this point, I had built like a network of support. So I pushed this, this really odd message to my support network. They set up a honey trap, and they got this troll account to click a link, and the troll account was so dumb that they clicked a link without a VPN or Tor or anything like that. So we just got like all the IP address, and so we reverse mapped it, geolocated it back to Google Indiana.
Oh my gosh.
Right? One of their data centers. So like, okay, well, now we know that Google knows who I am, and now they're starting PSYOP. So, so time to set a dead man's trigger, or a dead man switch. So I set a dead man switch. I called up my buddy James O'Keefe at Project Veritas, and I said, "Hey, Keith, or hey, James, in the event of my untimely death, I want you to release all the documents to the public right away." And then I went onto Twitter and I posted a public tweet because now I knew that they were watching me. And what I said was, in the event of my untimely death, all documents will become public. And I had this like picture of this guy who's like entangled in a dragon tail, and the dragon's like over him. He's like stabbing him in the heart as like one final blow. So I'm telling the snake, look, you come after me, like I'm gonna do this blow and you're gonna die, and everyone's gonna know why I died, and they're gonna kill you as a result. And I meant that like in a metaphorical sense, not like in an actual violent sense. Of
course, because dragons don't exist anyways.
Dragons don't exist, right? So, Google took that as a threat, and they decided that they were going to call a wellness check on me, and so they sent a bunch of police to my house. And I caught wind of this early because I'd given Google a decoy address, so they sent the police to the wrong house, and my friend was there.
Oh wow!
So he gave me a call and he's like, whoa, these police are really looking for you. And I told them that you weren't here, but they wouldn't take no for an answer. And they're still like sitting outside my house talking with dispatch or something. This is like in Richmond, and I live in like San Francisco.
Okay.
Well, 30 minutes later, the cops come to my house and they're like banging on the door. Well, first they're ringing the doorbell because I've got a gate. And then somehow they get past the gate and now they're like banging on the door, yelling for me to come downstairs. I know my rights. I don't have to talk to the police. They didn't even identify themselves as police. So I just pretended I wasn't there, because what are they going to do, right? How can they prove that I'm there if they can't see me or they don't have eyesight into where I'm at? So I just didn't answer them. Well, they decided that they were going to unilaterally escalate. Okay, they saw a tin can filled with denatured alcohol that my roommate uses in order to fire spin at the festivals that she goes to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they took a look at this denatured alcohol and they said, is that a bomb?
Oh.
I think this might be a bomb. Right, so they decided to call in the bomb squad.
Oh.
Okay, well, obviously if there's a bomb squad, they've got to like evacuate the streets. They blocked off from 20th and Valencia all the way down to 22nd. They had the FBI, they had a bomb squad, and then on the opposing roofs on the other side of the street, they had guys with sniper rifles.
Snipers.
Right? Now, they're escalating, and I'm just like hiding out in my house. I've got no idea that this is happening at all. My buddy who, got the police to his house first, he's like, oh, I got a bad feeling. I got to check out Zak and see if he's all right. So he comes to San Francisco to make sure that I'm all right. He parks his car where he's driving to my house, and then he realizes that the street's blocked off. And he sees all the cops, and he sees the sniper rifles, and now there's like a helicopter like flying around my house. Now I'm sitting here like in my house trying to like get my mind off the fact that there's this helicopter flying above me going, it's a paranoid conspiracy theory to think that there's a helicopter above my house for me. It's a paranoid conspiracy theory to think that there's a helicopter above my house for me. So I'm just trying to sit there like playing like Nintendo Switch to get my mind off anything, because like my hands are shaking. Because I'm like, there's no way this is for me. Obviously somebody murdered someone and they're on a chase and they just happen to be by my house and it's all just a coincidence. Well, this wasn't a coincidence. There's literally a helicopter flying around my house.
Oh my gosh.
So my best friend, he goes and he starts talking to the police, and he's like, is it, who's this for? They tell him that it's me, and then he starts negotiating with them, and then he gives me a call and he's like, yeah, they want you out of the house. They want to talk to you. They want to ask you a wellness check question. And I was like, I don't want to talk to the police, and this is Google's way of retaliating against me, and I don't know if there's a psychologist that's on their payroll. They may take me in for my own safety, give me a psych evaluation, then a crooked psychologist is going to be like, oh yeah, he's nuts, and then great, that gets into the record, and then I gotta have that hanging over my head in court.
Yeah.
So I'm like, look, I don't want to meet with you guys. Like, so I strike a deal. I'm like, look, how about you guys come to the gate? I'll come to the gate. You can see my face. You can ask me all the questions. And then, like, I'm free to go. Like, okay, we'll do that. So we come to an agreement of terms. I'm like, great. I go downstairs to the gate. There's a bomb robot in my gate. Its arm is through the gate door, and it's going in. It's like this, right? And then there's like this fast little small robot with like a camera on it. It's like moving really fast, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "There's a bomb robot in my doorway." Okay, so I call the police back. I'm like, "Look, I'm just gonna wait until the bomb robots leave, and then we can do the wellness check." They're like, "Actually, we now have to have you come outside." I'm like, "Come outside? No, that's not part of the agreement. We just came to an agreement of terms, a meeting of the minds, where we were going to talk face to face through the gate, and I was going to tell you all the questions." He's like, "I'm sorry, like, we can't do that anymore. You have to come outside and talk to us. But we promise we won't arrest you." I went, "You just lied to me. How can I trust you now? Like, we've broken the bond of trust. Like, you promised something, it didn't come true, and now you want me to come out of the house and make myself vulnerable to arrest." And they're like, "Look, that's what we have to do. Like, we have to ask you these questions. We're not going to arrest you, and we're not going to leave until you do this." So I was like, okay, well, everyone's got their cameras out. What are they going to do? They're going to shoot me in the middle of the road with all these cameras rolling? Like, I wouldn't want to be the operator that cleans that up. So I kind of figured that maybe I would be safe. So I got my camera rolling. My best friend was rolling. I agreed to come out, and there's video of that all over the internet, of me with my hands up, and then they detained me. They asked me a bunch of questions, like, am I going to hurt myself? Like, am I planning on hurting Google? Like, have I had any fantasies about violence? Are there any medications that I need to be on that I haven't taken? And then they're like, "Do you have any idea why this would be called on you?" I was like, "Yes, because I spilled the beans on Google's censorship regime, and I sent all of their information to law enforcement." They're like, "Prove it." And I pulled up my phone, and I showed them the letter that I had taken a snapshot of that I had put into the box to Washington, D.C. I was like, "Here you go." So I give this to the FBI officer. He looks at it. He's like, "Wow, okay then." Right? And he's like, and then they just start, yeah, like, everything starts de-escalating, and then they start asking me a bunch of questions. And fun fact, the favorite, most realistic show about cops on television is Reno 911. And it's not like, not one, they all say this, right? Yeah, like, it's a given. Scary. So
that's frightening and hilarious.
Yeah. So I got the heck out of San Francisco. The next day I was on a flight to DC at 8 a.m. I got to a safe house. And I was like, well, whatever influence Google has in the state of California, they probably don't have in Washington, DC. And yeah. And so at that point, I realized that that I was now a high value target. Google knows who I am. They know what documents that I have now. And they realize that no one else knows that I'm the leaker, pretty much, like maybe a small cadre, but not a lot. So if they were to, kill me, then it would be kind of hush-hush. It could be hush-hush really easily. And the value of that is that they could possibly prevent the disclosure of the documents, right? Maybe they could bully Project Veritas and tie him up in court. So what I realized is that I needed to unload all of this damaging material. So I go to Project Veritas. We do the whole disclosure. We release over 950 pages to the public. I tell my entire story. I step out of the shadows. And so now the return on investment on assassinating me is a lot less. It's a lot harder to pull off because of all the eyes that are on me. And people are going to know why I would have been killed for because of these documents. And it would just start a whole nother damaging news cycle and really activate the patriots of this country to see what Google was really up to. So that's where we're at today. Everything's been disclosed, and I'm trying to stay alive by coming on to channels like yours, and telling the story, because this is something that people need to understand because it affects all of us.
You couldn't have said it better. Yeah, I obviously think you're doing the right thing. You know, the more eyes on this issue that we have, I mean, the more likely it is that you're going to continue to breathe every single day. You know, maybe at one time it would have been far more cost effective for them to just remove you from the equation. But at this point, with as many people who understand who you are and the information that you've brought forward, it is not going to be a successful mission for Google if they remove you. Well, yeah. On that note, let's get back to the specifics from the drops. I want you to tell us about the blacklists, the various blacklists, and how are they created? What are they doing? Right.
So in my disclosure, there are at least 2 blacklists. There might be like another one hiding in there, but I know that I've disclosed 2, and Dr. Robert Epstein has released 9 prior to that. So there's a total of 11 blacklists that we know of that Google was using. And from what I know of what other people have said, there's a whole bunch more that are siloed around the company in various places. The reason why I was able to find the blacklist was because there was a news event and Google was saying that they don't employ blacklists, or they don't and so I was like, oh, really? Huh, that's funny, because if I just search this out over here, here's a YouTube query blacklist for their Twiddler program, which re-ranks stuff. And I was like, huh, it's 40 pages long. I think I'm going to save that. So, that YouTube query blacklist, wow, what a mother load.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's worth half of the disclosure is just that one document. And you know, they blacklisted the term, the phrase, the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland.
Yep.
And I'm like, what, really? You're blacklisting people from searching a constitutional amendment? I mean, is that dangerous content? Really? Right? And then I'm like, okay, what's the 8th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland? And I search it. I'm like, oh, it's a right to guarantee of life. I'm like, why is Google blacklisting people trying to find this stuff? Like, these people, it's so funny because the media narrative is all about democracy, 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 except when the people go against their democracy, or when they use the democracy to go against their agenda, then they got to let the hammer fall, right? Then they got to do all this creepy censorship of everything. And anyways, that's a divergent segue. But yeah, this YouTube query blacklist has, the 8th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland. It's got cancer cures are blacklisted. When there's a mass casualty event and people are searching for the connections between this person being a left-winger or an anti-Trump, that's also blacklisted. And I'm just like, it's not just one mass casualty event. It's a whole bunch of mass casualty events. Yeah. And that's sort of the Pandora's box, is that people are coming in here and they're going, oh my God, look at what Google is censoring. Look at what they've got to suppress. Look what the people are searching for, and trying to find evidence for. And look what Google is getting in there and intervening because they don't want people to find this information because it's damaging. What I see with this YouTube query blacklist, it's basically narrative damage control, 100%. They've got an agenda. Google is a highly politicized machine. This is something I've now come to accept, and I didn't believe before, but now I do. It's a highly political machine, and they don't want people finding out information because it goes against their agenda, so they censor it.
Now, one thing that I was wondering is, what possible reason could Google have to censor cures for cancer? I mean, how does finding a cure for cancer go against Google's own company corporate agenda?
Well, they think that non-standard practice for trying to cure cancer is fringe. And so I think they just sort of tried to, they know that a lot of the fringe cures have like a cancer cure, like cancer cure B17, cancer cure GC-MAF. Yeah. And so if they could just like hit the cancer cure thing, because they don't want cancer cured, they want cancer, well, the pharmacy doesn't want cancer cured, they want cancer treated, right? They want you on a subscription model. Everyone in startup land wants the subscription model because you can make so much money with it. And pharmaceuticals just figured out, in my opinion, it's figured out the same thing. Oh, let's just treat people, right? You know, give them chemo, they get really sick, and now they need a bunch of healthcare. It just guarantees it further. And so I've seen the science on a lot of these alternative cures, like it's rock solid. Right. And so that's what I think. I think it's just corruption, nepotism. That's the reason why they're putting in the cancer cure stuff. It's diabolical.